Good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of Mind Split Cafe. Today's going to be an interesting one. Matt, you want to kind of tee it up and
Yeah, usually Chris, you bring the guest, right? And I'm just but this time I introduced you to a very good friend of mine. I've known him since 2016-ish.
Yep.
In my days in Houston when I first started 610 marketing, and Vivek has always been there for me just as a friend, as a colleague and that sort of thing. So his new project, Infinite Potential, when I heard about it years ago, I was just blown away with it. And then Mind Split comes around, and I said, Chris, we have to have Vivek Shah on the show. So, Vivek, thank you so much for taking the time out of your insane schedule. I know you're busy walking kids to school and trying to help people, and taking the long way. That's an inside joke, but thank you so much
it's a
again
long
for
way.
just for
Well
joining
done.
the show and taking the time out of your day.
No, and just quickly before we jump in, just want to say real fast, Matt, appreciate you personally and our history and journey and relationship together. And Chris, been a pleasure to interact with you. And I know Matt keeps in really high quality company, so I am honored and delighted to be here. And let's have some fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
So to start, I want to pose a question to the listeners for them to think about it. And then after I pose this question, you can hit the ground running. Have you ever thought or wanted to reach your potential? Or sorry, let me rephrase that. Have you ever thought that you aren't reaching your full potential? Because I know I have. So just think
Yeah,
about that question as Vivek starts. So go ahead,
yeah.
Vivek, take it away.
So
What am I
yeah, so
talking?
tell us about
Yeah.
Infinite Potential. Like, this
Sure.
is your baby, this is your project. Obviously, this is one of the reasons why you're here, right? But um, tell us about Infinite Potential, and if you could summarize in like 5, 6 words, maybe, what exactly is it, and what is the mission?
Sure, sure. No, appreciate that. So the short 5, 6 word version is, we help humans and organizations reach their potential, like at a basic level. To double click through that a little bit, I'd say, this really starts with the fundamental belief that all humans and organizations have infinite potential. And so then we think about like, how do we arrive at that state? And so we really do two things in terms of components of how we get there. The first is coaching. And so view it as the category of like life coaching, executive coaching, performance coaching. And so we say, if this is the goal to reach that up here, and if the human state is down here, you can't attain this. So the coaching dynamic allows us to elevate the state of being of the human. And then if the humans are up here, but they're not in sync, that component is culture. So the second component of what we do is really help organizations drive the right culture. And it's awesome. And I'll tell you, we joke around internally that whether you're 2 years old or 92 years old, nobody likes to be told what to do. So our right, and like you guys know, I mean, if I'm
I
telling you
know
to
I'm getting sick of Chris, so I
right?
totally get it.
Well,
Wait,
Chris is
what?
better than my wife, right? Who's constantly giving me feedback. And I'm like, babe, come on. I've known my wife for a long time. We've been together since we were 16. And it's like the performance feedback all the time, telling me this, that, and the other thing. So anyhow, but I say that because our approach is very unique and different. And it really goes back to, what does that human want? And the person or organization we're serving, what are their values? What's important to them? What are their pain points, blind spots? Really understanding that human, and driving a path to collaborate, different avenues that resonate with that human. And then lastly, holding that person accountable only in ways they want to be held accountable.
Hmm. Well, I totally agree. Now, the question I have, the second one was culture. What was the first one that you said?
Coaching. Yeah. So
Coaching.
coaching.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the question that I had was, how do you help someone identify what they what do they, you said they want to be up here, right? Do
Yep.
you help them identify, hey, this is attainable, when you take on a client, because I know you worked with professional coaches and professional athletes, right? So
Yep.
you, and in organizations and companies as well. So how do you find that, how do you skirt that line of like, hey, this is attainable for you, it might not be attainable for that other person that I just worked with last week, but how do you find that sweet spot that this person can reach that potential in that coaching aspect?
Sure, sure. No, it's a great question. It's different for everybody, right?
Of
So
course.
we all three of us are made up of 40 trillion cells running around in our bodies doing all kinds of stuff. And so really, if you think about the beginning of when we're conceived, you got 500 million sperm racing to get to one egg, and the probability at birth that we arrive is like 1 in 12 billion in that
We're
moment.
all winners. We're all
All
winners.
winners,
We're here.
right?
We're
all
already winners right off the bat.
Yeah, even though we may not feel that way every day,
Yeah.
every moment, but we are. But like there's genetic makeup that comes into play. There's like what demographic were you raised in? What's your exposure? So, we really like to think about it as every being, human, soul, brother, sister, all has infinite potential for them. Now, for Steph Curry, it might be on the basketball court, right? And
Yeah.
that's where his mastery of his craft, at least in this phase of his journey, is there. For a teacher, no better or worse than a Steph Curry, their craft is that. And so it's all about mastery of the craft and also just playing, the role we're here to play in the game of life that we're playing. But I think when we talk about potential, it's really, is that human thriving, right? At the end of the day, are they thriving? And I'll give you one quick story. There's a guy who does a lot of our housework. And he's in our backyard one day. We got this patio with 2x2 tiles. And I'm upstairs coming out of the bathroom watching him, and he's power washing. And it's him and nobody else watching. And he is working a 2x2 tile for 20 minutes. And I'm just like, that guy's in the moment, right? Like this is his craft. The money didn't matter. Who was watching didn't matter. It was him in that moment against the tile doing the best work he can do. And so that is what we try to bring people to achieve in their own life, in their own craft, whatever it is, in a way that's really aligned with their values and their own vision.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that is really interesting because, there's I ask because there's some people that you ask them, oh, I want to be a billionaire, but then they don't have that mindset of creating and growing and or I want to be a fireman, but they don't exercise to pass, the requirement, the physical test to become a fireman, right? So that's kind of what I was getting at is how do you guys kind of like gauge, if I come to you and I say, Vivek, I want to do this, and then you kind of gauge like, hey Matt, let's keep it kind of realistic here, like this is kind of where you fall, not to be a detriment or hurt your feelings, but let's have realistic expectations, so that's kind of where I was getting at.
Yeah, no, and I mean it's a great question and point, and this might be a flaw in our process. We just don't come with that angle. Like,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Because again, back to our fundamental belief, we believe in infinite human and organizational potential. So if you come to me and you say, Vivek, I want to be a billionaire, to use your example for now, we're going to do everything we can to help you define a path and process to achieve that and what that looks like. Now, of course, you and I, we can't control if you're going to be a billionaire, but what we can say are, there's a concept in Japanese called ikigai, which is a beautiful theme. It translates to one's reason for being. And it's a 4-part thing where they say, if you can find the intersection of this, then you found your reason for being. And the first part is, what are you really good at? The second part is, what do you enjoy doing or are passionate about? The third part is, what does the world need? And the fourth part is, what can pay you money? And so one of our frameworks will be to try to explore those components with somebody. So if your piece is you want to be a billionaire, that's the outcome, right? We can't control outcomes. We can't control process. So then my question, my question to you would be like, Matt, what are the things you love? Let's look back in your decades of life. What are the things that you love? What are the things that you're good at where people are like, man, Matt, you have a gift there. What are things that give you fulfillment? Where it's like, put the $1 billion aside for the moment. You get such rich fulfillment when you're doing this craft. What does the world need, right? And then if we can find that intersection and nurture you on that path, that's the place to try to go and then see what happens.
So the outcome is essentially the direction that you want to point towards. What you guys do is really focus on the process. You've been given a direction. So, okay, this is where you want to go. Now let's create the processes and give you the tools in your daily life or in your functionality to go in that direction. We can't promise that outcome is going to happen, but you really need to focus on the process. Like you said with your handyman, he was focusing on that process in that moment and not worried about, hey, I've got a mortgage or I've got to pay or I've got this job or I need more jobs, whatever. He was just focusing on doing the process and good work for you.
And let me hit that for a moment. So, because you covered a lot of cool things. So one is on the organizational level. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's say you take a sports team. And if you ask most professional sports team, what's the goal? They almost all will tell you winning, right?
Yeah.
And you might have that alignment around winning because that's what they're doing in the business of entertainment and sports.
That's their ROI. Yeah.
Exactly. But then if you go back to that same team and whether it's, 50 players in the NFL or, 15 in basketball or whatever it is, and you ask all of those players and coaches, what is our process or what are our steps to get there? A lot of the times you get different answers and you don't see it, right? And so process is so important. And I'll say, I mean, look, a lot of extraordinary humans in any craft, you'll hear phrases like trust the process, be in the moment, like be patient with the process. And in our work, what we do is we actually uncover what is the process. Like Matt and Chris, you guys as humans, you may not have unpacked this yet. You have a process in what you do. And I'll give you examples of this. So like, for me, my process to achieve anything is like, what's the objective? The first thing I do is research and reflect. I'll go out, I'll research in the world, I'll spend time reflecting. The next thing I'll do is ask people in my ecosystem to try to get feedback and get ideas. Then I'll craft a path. Then I'll go back and like meditate and sort of reflect on it. And then I'll execute. And then I stop at the end. I'm like, what did I learn? I got a process, and everyone's process is different. Religious people are like, I want to pray. Other people have part of the process is journaling. And so now if you define what your process is and you have your core values and you operate from a place of values and process, you always land in a place of inner peace, regardless of the outcome. And that's what we try to help people achieve.
Wow. Very well worded.
Blown away.
I hope so, because this is my work. If I didn't word that right, I'm screwing it up.
No, that was very well worded.
I am blown away. And you reflect back, you use that analogy of a sports team, right? Like
sure.
Whether it be collegiate, whether it be high school, whether it be professional, right? Doesn't matter what sport. I'm just speaking from basketball because I've been on basketball teams, right?
Yep.
I think you're exactly right as far as setting that culture, because you can coach them, so to speak, in the drills. You can get them the player development stuff and okay, your jump shot and it's on point. But having that organizational culture where everybody in the building, whether it be marketing, whether it be coaching, whether it be executives, whether it be anybody, whether it be food science, nutrition, whatever it is, they've all got to be on that same page, and that culture has to be identified, because that will help them create get to that championship level that everyone is seeking, like you said, right? You know, and a perfect example is like the Spurs. I was part of the Spurs organization for a couple of years. Their culture is defined. Like and people will talk about it all the time. It's the Spurs way, it's the Spurs culture. The Miami Heat have that Miami way, right? You know, and there's so many the winning organizations have that defined culture, and it's set, and it's, you know, and I love that, right?
And I think you raise a good point. By the way, you know, what the work that RC and Pop have done down in San Antonio is incredible. And there's a great book called Culture Code, where one of the chapters they highlight the intricacies of how they built culture, and they're very values driven, which is amazing. You know, you see it in a lot of different arenas. And I think culture is really, really important to a lot of people. And I think that too, you know, we're talking about the human, like I can't tell, let's say, Chris, I'm talking to you and you're like, we're workshopping stuff. And I'm like, dude, you got to meditate, man. This stuff is so powerful. Look at the science behind it. But if meditation doesn't resonate with you, it ain't going to work, right? It's not effective. And so the same thing from a culture perspective, the mastery and the sort of intrigue we have with our work is every organization's different, every team is different. And so how can we define and create a culture that is best for that organization in that moment in time? Because year after year, even within a year, a team changes. And so setting that culture that's right for them. And, you know, Phil Jackson, he's got a great book called 11 Rings. And his first chapter is called The Circle of Love. And he talks about, you know, the beauty of getting 15 players on a team almost so much in love in a brotherly and nurturing, supportive way that it's like nothing can stop them, right? And by the way, in competitive sports, if we're talking about that arena at the professional level, incredibly hard to do because there's pressure, there's egos, dynamics, there's money.
Absolutely. Yep.
So much it's going on. And so it's a really complex thing that I don't think a lot of people fully understand how hard that is.
Well, you know, it goes back to that, you know, I had a high school coach, and he was a big believer in obviously team, right? He was like, hey, look, if you're in a fight and you go and try to hit somebody with one finger, you might break your finger, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But if you go up to them and you put all 5 fingers together and you make a fist and you try to hit somebody, you might knock them out. You know, or you got a better chance in that fight, right?
Totally.
So it goes back to like what you said, having that heartbeat. If you've got 15 different egos and they're all going different ways, and there's animosity over contracts and money and playing time and status or whatever, if you can get them collectively to come together as that fist instead of those fingers, then you've got a chance in the fight, you know?
Got a fighting chance.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, Phil, I mean, a great metaphor of that. I think he, per his book, he would, similar idea, he'd have all the players break like a branch, a little tree branch. And individually, you can break them all. If you take 15 people individually breaking a tree branch, you can break them. But now if you put 15 branches together and tie them up in one little thing, can't break them anymore, right? So the magic of culture is, how do you get that? But before you get into organizational culture, you got to elevate the human, right? And that's the power of coaching. And it's fascinating because growing up, we have teachers, we have coaches, we have all sorts of people supporting us on our journey. But then when we like grow up, you know, and we start working, who's helping us, right? Like, why would we not have someone that can mirror back in a way that's authentic to us to be in our court? And I think we've just found it is so powerful because take myself, you know, I got my wife telling me stuff and she loves me and cares for me, but she has her own world and her own agenda. So who in my world totally has my back every step of the way, gives me the space to like be, reflect, and navigate a path that's right for me? And that's what we do. And that's why the journey is so beautiful. It's always fun. It's always productive, and people really enjoy it, and it has great results too.
Now, to give an idea, you speak of that journey, right? And I know it's different for everybody, but in your findings or in your data or your research, and maybe this question, maybe you don't have an answer for it yet, but typically how long does that program or that journey last? Like, is it an ongoing thing? Like once you start, you're always trying to just like, it's like a ball of clay, like it's always malleable? Or is it like you start to see kind of a change within 6 months or 9 months, or, like a kind of a time frame to it? I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. One, the learning never stops, right? Like ever. And by the way, if
Yeah.
someone tells you that it does, then they've got to work through ego, because if
Yeah.
someone thinks they got to figure it out,
Yeah.
there's ego talking, right? Which is okay.
Yeah.
No judgment. It just is.
Yeah.
Now, I do think that, to answer your question specifically, in our work, by and large, almost always, if someone stays with the process for around 9 months to a year, and I'm always like hesitant to say the word transformative because that sounds so
Yeah.
bold,
Because
but
everybody's different. I get that.
everyone's
We're not
different.
trying to hold you to it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we see meaningful changes in the human state of mind and the state of being, usually in 9 to 12 months if they're in the process. Um, and again, it's different for everyone, but it's like so amazing because it's authentic to
Mhm.
that person, you know? It is
That's
so
beautiful.
authentic to that person. And everything we
How
do,
gratifying is that? Like you see, you've done it for so many people. Like I said, professional coaches, professional athletes, like, and even everyday like business leaders,
CEOs of
CEOs.
companies,
Like,
yeah.
how gratifying is it to see, like, after that 9 months or a year and a half, whatever it be, because it's going to vary. How gratifying is that for you and your team to see that person start from where they were at to really start to fulfill that potential when they first came to you on that coaching side?
Yeah, I mean, that's, going back to Ikigai, that is what we in our team, it gives us the greatest fulfillment and joy. And of course, we're a commercial business,
Yeah.
but like it's one of those things where, like, if you think about what would you do on the planet in this life form if, money was off the table, like this is it. Like I have found what I am here for on earth to do, and I will do this till I die, and it gives me the greatest fulfillment. And I'm really good at my work, and our team is great. And of course, we're always figuring things out and getting better. But it is so fulfilling. And at the same time, like John Wooden would say, when you think winning the championship, like the transformation of a human is like the thing. But then, and it feels amazing for a moment, but then you wake up the next day and you get back to work, and it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
boom.
Yeah.
And so it really is the journey and the process. And I'd say too, look, we have to check our egos too. We are just nurturing a human's path or an organization's path, but at the end of the day, they're putting in the work, right? So we might be 1% of the factor that's supporting them, but it's really up to the person that's putting in the work, and it's so much fun and very fulfilling for sure.
Yeah,
I
I can
love that.
imagine.
I think you're doing great work, Vivek. I mean, I've known you as a friend, as a colleague, like I said, going back to 2016, and we're running short on time, but I'm just so impressed with the journey, with what you're achieving,
Thank
who
you.
you're helping. Like, it's just a beautiful thing, and I just want to say thank you for what you do, because you're helping so many people, and I
Appreciate
can't wait
that.
for you to help so many more. Like, I'm excited for you.
Thank you. No, really appreciate that for sure. It's been great. And honestly, to have people like you and new folks come into my world like Chris and be a part of the journey just makes it so worthwhile. And I feel very grateful. So I appreciate the kind words.
Well, we'll help you. We'll help support you in any way we can. And quick plug, we'll give you a couple minutes. How can people find you? Like, how, I know it's kind of like it's kind of an organic find, right? But how can people find you, either on social media, or what is your website? Like, if someone if this resonates with somebody, you know, and they want to kind of seek out your guidance and your help, how do people find you?
Sure. Yeah, we are a little bit mysterious in that way. We don't really do a lot of marketing, and we're you know, whatever somebody believes, whether it's God or the universe or energy, we're sort of like, when that sort of brings us together, you know, in the right organic way, we'll work together, and we love those opportunities. We have, I think, you know, this is terrible. I don't even know, but we got some Instagram feed that's like Infinite Potential. Our website is infinitepotential.space.
Okay.
But we're pretty low key. You know, part of it is we go really deep with people. And so our model is not like, we're not trying to coach, you know, thousands of people around the
Of
world.
course.
We're taking in, you know, 10 to 12 clients at a time, being super intentional. We're like writing songs for sports teams. We're writing books for humans that are like coffee table books that resonate with them. We've got a whole design art team. We've got therapists on the team, NASA astronauts, PhDs in
Wow.
physics, like this incredible team.
it's,
It's like, yeah,
it's like a quality, you'd rather work with quality versus quantity, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's like very selective of, I don't want to say selective, but very, you're working with the right people in the right space versus I'm trying to help the masses and just kind of like putting everybody in different buckets and just trying to get
yeah.
them out.
And I think, and
Yeah.
again, we're, you know, I would never want to discount or say any human is better or worse than another. We got 8 billion of us running
Of
around.
course.
But I think about it this way, from a business perspective, we have different ways we could scale and grow. So one avenue, which would be great, is to serve thousands of people and, you know, do that, and that would be great. But the path that feels right to us, that's intentional about how we're doing it, is going back to professional athletes or CEOs of the world. They are in positions where if we can elevate those beings that have money, brands, platforms, so if we can elevate those humans to thrive and be the best versions of themselves or their highest selves, then it floods down because of all of the impact that they have. So that is what is exciting for us. And that's sort of like our intentional approach.
So you basically teach one to educate thousands.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the hope, right? Which is great. And I also like, you know, at this phase of my journey, I just love the deep work with people and connecting on a deep level where the impact is transformative. And so to go deep, it's like you can't have a bunch of clients, right? You have to be really focused, intentional, and know every dimension about them to do our best work.
Yeah. I'm so impressed, and I'm so happy for you, and I wish you nothing but success, because like I said, I've known you for years. And
Thank you.
I've always known you as being successful. So I know this is going to be no different with Infinite Potential. So
Appreciate
I wish
it.
you all the best, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate both of you giving me the time, space, and energy to be here. And such an honor and a gift. And yeah, nothing but gratitude and love. Thank you guys.
Yeah, Chris,
absolutely.
before
Thanks.
we leave, let's do a giveaway, Chris.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
I've got I think I know what I want to give away, right? Well, not give away, but I know what I want people to find out within the episode, and it's the concept of the Japanese culture that you mentioned in the episode, right? It was like midway through.
Mm-hmm.
If you could comment down below what that is and share it or tag Infinite Potential, Chris, we'll definitely give away some swag, and we're definitely going to try and help drive traffic to Infinite Potential. What do you think, Chris?
I think that's a good idea, and I think Vivek I think he had mentioned something about a book that he has, that Infinite Potential has, and he wants to give that out. So I think we say the first 25 people to comment the question that Matt asked and share the episode will receive one of these books.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Great. Yeah, a lot of people that don't know me personally, which is in a way kind of how I prefer it, but I'm known as the book guy. So it's on brand and would love to just, throw good out into the world. And thank you guys for being a medium of doing that in the ways that you are. And so appreciate all of that.
Well,
Yeah,
we wish
absolutely.
you all
Thanks
the
for
best,
being
my
here.
friend. Yeah, we'll definitely be tracking your story and rooting for your success. And you're welcome back anytime. I mean, I love talking
Thank you, guys.
sports and theories and manifestation, and I can't wait for the next episode where you could share your Phil Jackson story, because I was like blown away. So
You got
that's
it.
a little teaser for episode 2. Yeah.
You got it. Thank you,
All
guys.
right.
Appreciate it.
Take care, my friend.
All
Till
right.
next
See you
week,
guys
guys.
next week.
You got it.
We'll see you soon.